Hello and welcome to the Green 19 podcast. I'm Dominique Yates. Joining me, Ryan Wood and Tom Silverstein. We're here in our hotels here in California. We got kicked out of the media room. I guess Tom was talking too loud or singing or something. They didn't like it, so they made us leave. But now we're here to recap the game. The Packers winning 24-19 over the Rams, improving to 3-2 on the season. And let's just kind of run through it and have some observations, guys. Before we dive deep into players and different performances, individual ones, let's just look at the game. So I'll start with you, Ryan. Just what were your general observations of the Packers in this victory? First half, not too great. Third quarter, they did some pretty strong things. Just, what were your takeaways?
Other than Xavier McKinney is a folk legend hero of some sort, because I can't get over that. 5 straight is incredible. I think I said going into the week it was a business week. You got to take care of business. That's kind of what they did. It wasn't pretty. There weren't a lot of style points out there. There's a lot of issues, but they beat a team they should have beat on the road, and that counts for something in this league. So they're 3-2. The NFC North is the only division in football where every team has a winning record. This is a loaded division, including an undefeated team in the Minnesota Vikings. So every win counts. Every win's important because they're going to stack up in this division going forward. So yeah, they beat a team they should have on the road, and it makes it a good week. On a week that otherwise Spoon was not all that great.
Yeah, same thing for you, Tom. What were your takeaways and observations just initially?
I think they just escaped disaster. Really, they faced a team that's not full strength, but again had its back to the wall. Really needed to win a game, and played like it. I thought they had a great game plan. The Rams did. I thought they played more physical than the Packers, and I thought they had a lot of answers, but they're just not a very good team, and the Packers are very lucky to escape out of there. It's going to wind up being a big win for them, probably down the road because it's an NFC win on the road. But man, they were not that far from losing that game, and they still have a lot of issues. They're not far from being a polished team by any means.
Yeah. What, I guess, as far as mistakes, again, this is like for both of you guys, I guess, what are you seeing that it's just not there yet? Because you see those moments, right? You'll see some nice throws from Jordan Love, but then it might be followed with that pick six. You might see some good running, and then, just there's that inconsistencies for you guys. Just, what are you seeing where it's not clicking? It's still early, but it's just not yet there for this offense.
I'll make it simple. They got to get the quarterback right. Yeah. They got to get the quarterback right. When the quarterback's not right, offense not right, there's a lot of other issues, not just Jordan Love, but he's not right. 8 touchdowns, 4 interceptions, 5 interceptions. How many has he got in the season now?
Interceptions? I think it's at least 4.
3, 4, 5.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's not Jordan Love. We saw him go 9 games late last season with one pick when he was dropping everything on a dime. He hasn't been that guy, even when healthy. Even Philadelphia, this isn't just a knee thing. He wasn't good against the Eagles either. He wasn't what he is expected to be. Call it a sophomore slump. Whatever it is, it's not like he's not talented. We've all seen it. We all know that he's that kind of talent. He's got to play at it. And he's got an 89 passer rating. He's got a 56 completion percentage. The Packers have a certain expectation, and they gave him this expectation when they paid him what they paid him for him to play at a certain level that he has not played at. That has to be met. Go ahead, Tom.
Yeah, I'm not going to be that harsh on Jordan Love. He's playing hurt, and the interception against the Rams, while not a good decision, never should have happened. I don't know if someone was supposed to pick up the backside there, or if he's supposed to just get rid of it, or what, or if there was a mistake in protection. That was a dumb play, although it didn't really hurt them in the long run because they went down and scored right away. But it's really obvious, even when he scrambled and got away from that. I think it was, I can't remember who it was, but doing that, he didn't look like Jordan Love. He looked like a guy who's a little tentative to run and not quite really ready to bust loose. And it's really clear he's not moving all that well in the pocket. He's relying very heavily on his arm. And so, I'm going to give him a little bit of a break on that. I think that'll come together as his knee goes. But if I had to pick a spot, I would say it's their pass rush. It's just been, I'm not even going to say it's inconsistent because it's been consistently not very effective or present. And I think that's made a huge difference in the game, in their season. Now, it hasn't killed them yet because, they managed to beat up on 3 really kind of bad teams. But ultimately, they got to get that going. And I don't know if it's that they're struggling with how to be a 4-3 team after being a 3-4 team for so long, or if they're just not the pass rushers that we thought they were.
As far as with the offense, just the connection with Love and the receivers. I'll start with you, Ryan. I guess, what do you make of it? Are they just not all the way there yet? Is it the route running? Is it the throws? A little bit of both? Because there's some moments, like I said, they'll make a nice catch or there'll be a drop. And I guess from my vantage point, that's what I'm curious. Is it been the route running? Has it been guys just not helping Love out? Has it been the throws? Or just a little bit of all of those things?
I think it's everything. It's not just Jordan Love. It's not just the receivers. It's kind of much better than a year ago, much better than last October. I mean, they're 3-2. They're scoring touchdowns in the first half, but a little similar to the issues that they had last October when, it was kind of a potluck. It was kind of a mix of everything. Jaden Reed had a tremendous catch today for 50-plus yards, triple coverage, and he had a terrible drop, wide open on third down. Killed a drive. That ball has to get caught. Jordan Love put it on him. It's third down. You have to catch that. And Jaden Reed is the first that'll tell you that. Dontavian Wicks, obviously, continuing to struggle with drops. And just like I said last week, they are Dontavian Wicks is a guy that they're going to keep going back to because he is that kind of talent. He is extremely talented. And they believe that he is extremely talented. It's reminiscent of Devontae Adams' second season where, you got the drop Vontae moniker and struggle with the drops. And, you just knew that he was a talented guy. You had to stick with him. I'm saying that history repeats itself. We'll see if it does. But they're going to stick with him, but he's got to start catching the football. But then, yes, Jordan Love is missing throws at a rate, the type of throws that we just didn't see for 2 months late last season. The way that he closed those final 9-10 games, he was on point almost every time. It was incredible. You have to remember how good it actually looked. And there was Pete Doherty made a comment today that I thought made a lot of sense. The best that Jordan Love played last year coincided with the return of Aaron Jones and the best 5-game streak of Aaron Jones's career. So that run game is important, I think, because that they did it today. 19 carries for Josh Jacobs. He averaged less than 4 yards per carry, but they have to stick with Josh Jacobs and have that balance because it's going to help Jordan Love. He's just missing too many throws, and he's been doing it since before the knee injury. He did it against the Eagles. I don't put the missing throws part on the knee. He's missing throws that they need him to make.
I'm curious, speaking of receivers, it's only fitting, asking about Romeo Doubs. And it's not everything. We're not going to know everything, right? Obviously Matt LaFleur said it's personal reasons as to why, he was suspended for conduct detrimental to the team. I guess I'll start with you, Tom. Just what do you kind of make of that? whole situation right now. I know not everything has come to light, if you will, but I guess is there anything, opinion wise, just that you've kind of seen and just your thoughts on kind of what came to with them being suspended this game?
Well, it's obviously it was a disappointment to, I think, everybody on the team that he just didn't show up on Thursday and wasn't at practice, and then wasn't at practice on Friday. Now, I don't know if they told him to stay home on Friday or what, but Bill Huber's good reporting, reported that he was unhappy with his role. And I don't doubt that for a minute. I do wonder if there's some other things, that if it's more complicated than that. But I think they have to solve that. They have to get him back to being the guy he was a year ago. Really, all 3 years that he's been with the team, or previous 2 years, he's an important part of their offense. If he's frustrated that he's getting too many balls or not getting enough balls, well, they're going to have to figure that out. They're going to have to figure out whether he can live with that. And then if he can't, it wouldn't be the first time that the Packers have decided they'll move somebody who is just not happy and not going to be happy. I mean, they did it with Mike McKenzie back in 1999, or one of their draft picks in 99. Javon Walker, they did it. If they just can't reconcile with him, then they gotta move, and they may have to get in this market for wide receivers, which I think will be pretty good come the trade deadline. But I don't think they can live with what they have. I think until Christian Watson shows he can be in a game every week, they just don't have a dynamic player other than Jaden Reed. Wicks has that potential, but he's a really young player, and he has a drop history too. He dropped a lot of balls his senior year in college. And so there's some things that I just don't know that he's ready to be like a number 1 or number 2 receiver where all the pressure's on him. Doubs is used to that. Watson's used to that. Reed is used to that. And it's a whole different, animal when that kind of responsibility is on your shoulders. So they have to figure that out, because they can't, I don't think they can win with just Reed, Tucker, and then a bunch of other guys. They got to get Watson, and they got to have Doubs or someone else.
Spoon, can I ask a question?
Mm-hmm.
If you're Brian Gutekunst, do you trade Romeo Doubs and a day 2 pick for Davante Adams?
No, I wouldn't go to Davante Adams. I think, I think that ship has sailed, and I think he had his moment. And I don't think you're looking for a guy who's got a contract with $25 million next year and $30 million the year after that. Now there's some other somewhat high-priced guys, but that might be more affordable. Like you assume, like the Cleveland Browns are going to start selling. The New York Giants might start selling. There will be some other teams that will be involved. Jacksonville might start selling. So you have to keep that in mind. But no, I wouldn't do Davante Adams quite yet. The Dobbs thing needs to be settled, and they need to settle that pretty fast. I don't know whether they can settle it in one day with sitting down with him, but they have to decide one way or the other what they're going to do, because the season marches on. They don't have a bye week or anything like that coming up. It's going. So figure out what you're going to do. It does sound like Watson's going to be back sooner than later. I talked to him after the game, and he said he's in a really good place. I don't know what that means, whether that means next week or the week after that, but it definitely isn't, where they thought it might be when he first heard it.
The season does march on, which is why I understand why the Packers have been playing this as everything will be fine Monday. We're just, we're learning lessons, a distraction. They happen. On to the next week. No big deal. Just keep powering through because you got to. Like that's what you. They didn't want this to happen, and then it happened, and now they're in cleanup mode. So I get why, but I have a hard time picturing how they go forward from this situation. In some ways, having this many young, talented receivers on the same roster together in the same meeting room in the same offense always felt a little bit powder keggy to me, because as much as Jason Vrabel might say, oh, everyone's just unselfish. We just, whoever's open is open and you just want everyone to have success. Like there's part of that, sure. But this is a professional sport. They're playing for money, for contracts, and there's only one football. That's tough. All four of these guys are thinking about second contracts. Everyone thinks about second contracts. And so it almost felt a little inevitable. I didn't know this would happen, but it's not a shock that something like this happened. But now that it has, one of the things that this receiving room had was camaraderie. They had a year ago, they had chemistry. A lot of young guys, kind of too young to think about the bigger elements of pro sports. And now that dynamic has changed. Essentially, Romeo Doubs has put himself to the forefront, and the message it sends to those other guys. I know you talked with some guys in the locker room today. The message it sends, I don't know how you just return to that. And then the message that it sends to the coaching staff that puts in 18-hour days to come up with a game plan, introduce the game plan, and then say, nah, I'm not good with your game plan. From a coaching staff, how do you trust that guy again? There's some big questions, big concerns to be worked out that I just have a hard time seeing how that's going to go forward.
Spoon, yeah, go ahead, Spoon. Yeah.
He has to be accepted back. Some of the guys that I talked to were like, we still love him. Almost all of them said, we love him. But several of them did not have answers when I asked them, what does he have to do to get back? To come back, what does he need to say to you guys when he comes back into the room for you to regain his trust? And they didn't have answers necessarily for it. I think, there's only one ticket back for him. And that is he comes back, he talks to his teammates, apologizes to his teammates, and then he gets back to work and works harder than he ever has, puts his head down, goes to work, and plays his butt off. That's really the only way that I see an easy transition back for him. If it begins to be an issue again, then they got to get rid of him. They had this issue with, it wasn't the same issue, but the year Ty Montgomery was returning kicks, and it actually happened in LA, where he returns a kick where they told him not to, and he returned it anyways, fumbled, and it lost Aaron Rodgers a chance to bring them back. Well, after that, everybody was so upset with him that they just couldn't have him on the team anymore. He had just disobeyed what the coaches told him, and it cost him a game, and everybody was ticked. Well, mostly Aaron Rodgers, but if that happens with Doubs, then they have to get rid of him. They can't have a guy who's by himself alone and not supported. I'm not saying that's going to happen. I think he can get back in the good graces, but man, he's going to have to work at it.
Yeah, that Ty Montgomery thing is what came to my mind as well, because that was it was a selfish decision, and he was gone very quickly after that. Mm-hmm. But I completely agree with you. If you want to get back in good graces, there's nothing else to do other than Monday morning, you're in the building, hat in hand, being contrite and apologizing. But this is we'll see if it happens. But I have a hard time seeing Romeo Doubs going from being so convicted that he was getting, for lack of a better term, screwed over, that he didn't show up to practice Thursday, and then being contrite Monday. Like, this is a guy that's to not go to practice, to not show up, to get yourself suspended. He's very convinced that he's not seeing a future with this team. He's not seeing it trend the way that he wants it to go, and he's very convicted in that. So to go from convicted to contrite, it'd be quite a turnaround. I don't know that I can see that happening so quickly. It'd be very interesting.
It could. I mean, who knows? Maybe he was getting bad advice. Maybe there was somebody, telling him, "You're not getting the ball enough," and in his ear constantly about that. And he's 24 years old. He's impressionable. I look at what happened with Jair Alexander last year, and he was kind of out of control and was thinking he was bigger than the team. And then they suspended him. And what we've seen since then is that, he comes to these interviews. He's actually kind of engaging a little bit. He was playing really good football, at the time that he got hurt. He doesn't seem to have the conflict he had with some of the other players. I think a suspension can, not to mention losing $57,000, can be a nice, wake-up call to you. And we'll see. I don't know. Maybe it doesn't. That's why I brought up Ty Montgomery, because it might not work out. It might just be over.
Yeah. So this upcoming week, it's going to be very interesting just to see how he responds to the guys, what he's like in the locker room, on the practice field, in the meetings.
Yeah,
it's going to be interesting.
Yep.
You got to stand up in front of the media and do a mea culpa.
He can't dodge questions. You can't. You put this out there, you have to answer for that. That just is what it is.
Yeah. Which is, it's fascinating. I don't know, you guys and Ryan, you said you're not surprised this happened, but are either of you guys surprised that it was Doubs? I mean, 20 targets. And not only that, the past 2 weeks, it's like Malik Willis was the quarterback. So no receiver was going to really be getting catches and targets. And so I don't know. Were either of you surprised that it was Doubs that this might reportedly is someone that's mad?
Dom, what you just said. The shocking part of this is that he's not lacking for targets. That's the thing that just was unfathomable to me. I couldn't comprehend that. Like, you're upset about targets, but you're getting like that I don't understand. And Spoon, I think the point you made about maybe bad advice like that, we don't know, but would make sense because the numbers don't make sense. Being upset about those numbers don't make sense.
I mean, that is true. You see it on all levels. I mean, you see high school kids now with handlers saying, like, you should transfer schools or make all these decisions for them. So, like you said, I wouldn't be surprised at all if that was the case. So, once again, I'm curious what this week will look like with Doubs back in the fold and how will he handle and respond everything that's going to, you say, come at him. Last point with the offense, and then we move along. As far as a positive bright spot, I mean, Tucker Kraft. I mean, the second straight game he gets a tight end. That 66-yard touchdown was very impressive. But, early on he had established himself as like that physical run blocker. But he's showing, hey, if you can get me the ball, good things can happen. So, I mean, this is what his second season, and it's pretty clear. It's showing early on that the Packers very well might have a superstar at tight end who could do some really big things for years to come with this team.
Yeah,
Tom, what do you got? Sorry, I forgot to say a name.
I'll take that. Yeah, I'm not ready to crown him a superstar, but I think he's become a complete tight end. And I think he's someone who is going to has the potential to make, 2 or 3 big plays a game. And when I mean big plays, I mean something that gets a big first down or a clutch first down, or breaks a tackle, or in this case, 66 yards down the sideline, with a really impressive run. But he is the definition of an all-around tight end, and they haven't had that for a long time. And I think, he's going to continue to be a huge part of their offense.
He was a yak guy coming out of South Dakota State. That was his book. His scouting report was playmaker with the ball. Now, that didn't mean that automatically it would translate to the NFL from small college football, but it has. I mean, you've seen it. At this point, it's very clear. He did it last year too, late in the season. It's very clear that he is a yak tight end. As a classic inline blocker, I think it's too early, I agree, but there's every reason to think that he can transcend into a star type player. His numbers this season, he's got 16 catches, 218 yards, and 2 touchdowns now. 3 touchdowns now through 5 games. He's going to blow away last year's numbers. And last year's numbers, 31 catches, 355 yards, 2 touchdowns, were very solid for a rookie tight end. He's going to blow those away. He's going to have big numbers. He's probably the most talented tight end I've covered here. Robert Tonyan had a great 2020, a lot of touchdowns. Then he tore his ACL. I don't think he kind of had this type of playmaking ability. Jared Cook had a great back half of 2016. Didn't put it together like this. Jimmy Graham was over the hill when he was here. He's got a chance to be a real stud, and I think the fact that he's so versatile is a big part of it. So the yak has transitioned. Best game of his career today, and it does feel like it's just the beginning for him.
Now, as far as this defense, it's so hard to figure them out sometimes because we can talk about a lot of positives at times, the fumble recovery, the 4th down stops, the interceptions with Xavier McKinney. But then we can look at other moments and just scratch your head. And Tom, you mentioned it earlier about the pass rush. I mean, they had another running back. They gave up another 100 yards again with, Kyron Williams. He had a big game. And I guess the reason why I know I'm the new guy, but even I can't figure it out because are they young in spots on the defense? Yes, but it's like a Javon Bullard or an Evan Williams or younger guys, but those guys up front are supposed to be more of your vets. Starting with you, Tom, can you figure it out? I mean, do you know what the deal is? Is it execution, effort? Is it technique? I mean, I'm just really curious as to why there hasn't been more of that pass rush because with the 4-3 defense, you would imagine Hafley was thinking, well, I got these 4 guys. I can send them and let the others, you would say, play back.
Yeah, I just don't know if they have the sheer talent to rush with 4. I think, they've got 2 guys who are on probably heading for the downside of their career, Kenny Clark and Preston Smith. They got Rashawn Gary, who's, a hustle player, but is not, a top pure pass rusher in the NFL. He's a guy who's had some success rushing the passer, but he's not, Myles Garrett. He's not Nick Bosa. He's never been that. He's been a really good physical hustle player. And I don't know if it has to do with switching from the 4-3, from the 3-4 to 4-3 has kind of taken some transition. The fact that they're only rushing 4 is an issue. The one thing I will say is that they give up yards, but they don't give up a ton of points. They had the bad half against the Vikings, and they stiffened up after that and were pretty good. And then, they pretty much held the Rams in check. They gave up the 100 yards. They give up a lot of yards. That's part of who they are. And then they get turnovers. I don't know. I think that worm has to turn by midseason where all of a sudden it's not just turnovers, but now they're forcing 3 and outs and things like that. They're not there yet. And I think I am perplexed by the pass rush. I don't really see why they're not winning, especially when they're getting one-on-ones on the outside. That hurts them. And I think we also saw today that Devontae Wyatt is a lot more important to their front than anybody thought.
Yeah. For you, Ryan, when you look at what the defense did, I will say the one, I guess, adjustment that they did that was big for them was when moving Javon Bullard to the nickel, allowing Evan Williams to play some more. And, he was able to have some big fourth down stops, and he did a good job reading the defense. And, Keyshawn Nixon, he did some good things. So, like I said, there are a lot of places and pieces in place for this to be a good defense. But again, they do have to work on just getting some more pressure to the quarterback, making it difficult. Edrin Cooper, he did some big things as well. His big fourth down stop, he got the pressure and just created some good things. So just when you see the defense, I mean, how far away do you feel like they are to being, one of the top 10, top 15 type defenses?
It's hard to figure out this defense right now and how good they are. This is the third time in 5 games they've given up less than 20 points. All 3 of their wins, they've given up less than 20 points. That's great. That is really, really good. They take the ball away at an extremely high level, right? I mean, Xavier McKinney, he's playing like the best safety in the league right now. He's playing like an all-pro. He's playing like a potential candidate for Defensive Player of the Year. 5 interceptions in 5 games. Like, that is – it's impossible. It's impossible, right? Like, he's doing it, but it's impossible. Like, it hasn't happened for a defensive player, for anyone, to have 5 picks in your first 5 games, each of them with a new team since the 1970 merger. It hadn't happened. And then Xavier McKinney did it. Like, what he is doing is, frankly, legendary. It's what it is. So they take the ball away at an extremely high level. That's a great thing. That's a mark of a great defense. But then they give up a lot of yards. And I think the one thing you're seeing, like, great defense emanates from pass rush and takeaways. Like, those are the kind of the 2 pillars of great defense. Third down, red zone, situational ball, that's important too. You're seeing Jeff Hafley get creative with his scheme to try to create some of that pressure, because it's not happening the old-fashioned way of just beating the guy in front of you in your base or your 4-3, right? So a part of that is Edrin Cooper. We'll see what the snap counts are on him. Certainly seemed like he played the most snaps he's played so far through 5 games. The biggest role he's had. They had the one 5-man front where Edrin Cooper was in the middle. They had 3 defensive ends, Gary, Smith, and Lucas Van Ness, and then Kenny Clark on the field, which the book on Edrin Cooper coming into the league was that he's a pass rushing, versatile type of linebacker. Like, he had a lot of sacks in college, and I think you're seeing the Packers identify that in him as a guy that can kind of give him that versatility. He had a big sack that knocked the Rams out of field goal range today. I think as he continues to play, and I know Spoon's been trumpeting for him to play more too, that's going to be a good thing for this defense. But at the end of the day, your Rashawn Garys, your Kenny Clarks, your Lucas Van Nesses, your high draft picks and your veterans, your stars, your talented players up front have to win their matchups. It's not happening enough. If it doesn't happen more, there's going to be a ceiling on what this defense can do. If they get more victories in their matchups, you're going to see this defense take off. I mean, so much of it to me is on that.
Tom, I want to get your take on Xavier McKinney, because, you've been around here for a long time. You've seen a lot of great defensive players, the Charles Woodson, defensive player of the year when he was there. Just what do you make of this start for McKinney in Green Bay? And not only that, I mean, he took the back end of what he did with the Giants, and he just hasn't looked back in his first 5 with the Packers.
Yeah, he actually has an interception in 6 straight games, because he had 2 in his final game in New York. And so that ties an NFL record. I mean, if he gets another one, Nobody has ever had 7 straight. And so he is on to something special. I've never seen a guy have 5 interceptions in a row. He is just a consummate pro. And if you want to say something positive about Hafley, it's that he's put him in a position to be successful. So he puts him in positions where he can make plays. Sometimes you see him up in the box and he makes a tackle, or he forces some throw that should go underneath. He takes that away. He's a really solid player with ball skills. And for some reason, teams are willing to throw the ball up to him, and opportunity is knocked. I don't think that opportunity always knocks that much, but he is just on a roll. And you could just tell he's a smart player. He's got length. He can catch the ball. I mean, he should have had a second interception, really.
Yeah.
Right through his hands. But we may even think he's better than he really is, because free safety play has been so bad here for so long that it makes it seem like he's, the greatest of all time. He's having a heck of a start to his career, to his Packers career. So it's something. It's something to build on. Believe me.
One quick note. Xavier McKinney did tell me in the locker room after that Stafford looked him off more than any quarterback's looked him off so far this season. And I asked him, byproduct of the streak is like, I mean, his reputation's out there now. You cannot throw the ball deep middle on Xavier McKinney. So that's not going to change. That's not going to get better. Like quarterbacks are only going to start with Kyler Murray next week. They're only going to be looking him off more. And it will get to the point where kind of how Jair Alexander at his best shut down half the field. Like quarterbacks are going to be looking off Xavier McKinney because they don't want the ball taken away, so that's something to keep an eye on.
Yeah, I think as far as with McKinney's play, the interception was one thing. He like you said, he makes so many smart decisions. It's almost like he was like a center fielder in baseball. I think one of the big plays too, that third down stop, where Stafford tried to hit Tutu Atwell, he was right there, just laid him out. I mean, it was just an impressive play, and it's kind of really fascinating to go from where the Packers secondary was last year, and then a guy like him has just immediately, you could say, changed the game for that Packers secondary. And again, it's big too. I mean, even through Carrington Valentine, he was able to play a little bit. Jair's not there just yet, but again, it can only continually grow. So I guess if there is a group on the defense that you can't question, for sure it has been that secondary. So I've been impressed.
Yeah, and I think, when Alexander comes back, then they have a decision to make how they're going to line up. But I think Bullard in the slot is going to be something we're going to see more of. And I think Evan Williams on the deep safety and the nickel is more. I think Keyshawn Nixon may see less time. I think it'll depend on, what the situation is. But, if it's third and long, then maybe Keyshawn Nixon comes in and plays the slot. But Bullard near the line of scrimmage he's an asset there. He tackles. He is a physical player, and he's got the speed to cover the slot. Getting Alexander back is like vital. That's really important. Then they can decide, okay, who's the other corner? Is it Valentine? Is it Stokes? I think they really need to kind of settle on that too. And then, they have a lot of options after that.
And they need to play Evan Williams. He's just too good to be on the sideline. He is a guy that needs to play. So, it's the double benefit of Bullard being in the slot. He is very good around the line of scrimmage. Probably your best DB when it comes to being around the line of scrimmage. That's a good spot for him, but it also opens the vacancy for Evan Williams to get off the sideline because he's just too good to not play.
What's impressed me about these young guys like Williams, like Cooper, like they're young but very, very intelligent. They're locked in, and they're getting a feel for this defense. You can see because, we talked to Evan Williams after this, and he broke down just that fourth down stop, and he said it was a play they had ran a few times. He knew the route. He knew that the tight end was going to try to come right underneath him, and he was just right there to break it up. And he said, and he'd actually got a fourth down stop earlier in the game from that same play. So I think that all of these guys, they're doing a really good job of just their instincts, their training, and they're putting it into motion. Sometimes that can be easier said than done, but that's something that's really just stood out to me, just what these guys, especially these rookies, what they're doing on this level right now. So it's something worthy of, you could say, I don't know, giving them flowers, if you will. Speaking of giving flowers, special teams, I don't have a question, but a clean sheet for Braden Arvison. I don't know what more to add. He hit his 56-yarder. He hit his extra points. That's what you're supposed to do, right? But he did it.
46-yarder.
Right down the middle.
46-yarder.
Yeah.
But we're walking out of the stadium tonight, and I literally say, hey, best thing that happened today. I don't have to crush Braden Arvison on the podcast. He finally made his kicks. Finally.
Yeah.
Finally.
There are two things, though. I don't know what happened to Whelan in that game because he went from, booming the ball to I don't know what was going on. He just didn't get any hang time in that place. I'm not sure what the reasoning is. I didn't get a chance to talk to him. So that was something. The other is that Narvison deserves some credit were the kickoffs that got right to the goal line pretty much. And every time they stopped them inside the 30, that's the goal because the touchback goes to the 30. So they did a pretty nice job on kickoffs.
Yeah. As we near the end, where's I guess some final thoughts from you guys. We'll start with you, Ryan. They're moving ahead. Like I said, they got the win. It wasn't pretty. Style points, whatever. That doesn't matter in the NFL. You just got to win and move on. You're getting ready for Arizona, who survived and was able to beat the 49ers today, I'm pretty sure. Just what are your final thoughts and words just on this Packers group moving forward and heading into just another week, going back to Lambeau?
Well, I should probably start by apologizing to Daniel Whelan. I write the story this week about how good of a season he's had.
Kiss of death for sure. Absolutely kiss of death.
And I didn't mean to jinx him, but clearly I did. I didn't know I had that power, but apparently I do. I did it. I thought for sure like this was it's not truly indoor, but it's pretty indoor. It's a weird concept of a stadium. It's cool, but like I thought he crushed the ball in LA and he didn't. So I'm confused by that. Look, they didn't play the best, but they were shorthanded too. It wasn't just the Rams shorthanded. They didn't have Jair Alexander, just like the Rams didn't have Cooper Kupp and Puka Nacua, right? They didn't have their best corner. They didn't have two of their top receivers. They went into a road game and they won. They're 3-2. I think these, they lost their last home game, and it was against a division rival. Like, these next two home games are important. You got to win your home games. The Cardinals are no pushover, right? The Texans are no pushover. This is a big 2 weeks coming up in this season where they're going to be. They can be at being at 5-2, or they can be at 3-4. These are two really big games coming up until you get Jacksonville, who's for whatever reason just not any good, right? So I think these two games coming up are really, really signature weeks.
Tom, just for you, any final words heading into another week?
Something that just kind of occurred to me in this watching the game was, and then having watched the Vikings game earlier, was, we've gone over Aaron Jones, ad nauseum about what he's meant and all of that. But I think what is really missing from the Packers is someone who can break like a 20, 25-yard run. And I think we know why they picked Marshawn Lloyd in the draft, because they were looking for that type of guy. They knew Josh Jacobs is a pound it. He's going to he's going to break some tackles, but he's not going to get a whole bunch of 60-yard runs or 40-yard runs or whatever. And you got to have that from time to time. If you can't get someone to break fairly decent run, then you don't get the defense's attention, I think. And that kind of guy with that kind of speed, I think it'll be interesting when he comes back. And I can see now why they force-fed him and really wanted him to play, and probably got him out there while he was still hurt, and that wasn't very smart. And then he gets the bum ankle thing. But I am curious to see if he's the guy later in the year when they add him, if he starts to make a difference, another rookie, because they just lack, other than Christian Watson, they just lack pure speed. And he and Christian Watson have it. Yeah.
All right, guys. It's been great. Any other things? You guys good to go? Clear this up and call it a night?
You know what?
It's time to leave the West Coast. Bummer.
To your point, I was just looking at the numbers when you were talking about Josh Jacobs. I hadn't thought about that myself. He, in each of his first two games, he had a 32-yarder against the Eagles. He had a 34-yarder against the Colts. So in each of his first two games, but since then, his longest run been 13 yards. He hasn't had a 15-yard run the last 3 weeks. You're absolutely right. That is a significant piece of this offense that is missing. Now, I still think you need to force feed him because he's a good player. He's going to get you 5 yards. He's going to keep you on schedule. He's going to give you balance. He's one of the best running backs in the league. You got to stay with him. That he's built for that. But yeah, no, that's a very fair point.
Yeah,
and throw it to him. I think they finally got him involved in the screen game, and they have not used him in the passing game at all.
I know there are a few moments in that game, where he was wide open in the flat and Love could have dumped it off, but he tried to force it. And I'm just like, Jacobs, he's right there just waiting.
Yeah, those are easy yards. Go take them. Aaron Jones got a lot of those yards by him just dumping it off, Love. And so, I think they gotta get that in Love's head a little bit more too.
So looking forward to seeing what happens next week as they get ready to host the Arizona Cardinals. But in the meantime, we thank you all for checking out the Green 19 podcast from California. We're heading back to Green Bay, and we'll talk more about these Packers. But for Ryan Wood, Tom Silverstein, I'm Dominique Yates. Thanks for checking out the show.